Greetings. Welcome from beautiful, beautiful Johannesburg, South Africa, where I'm coming from. I just thought before we start, I need to introduce myself. I will be taking you through the HCMBOK training certification program, but before I do that, I think it's important that you get to know who's behind the presentation. The name is Marlon Kamesa. I am part and parcel of the HUCMI family, as you can see from my big banner right behind me. I am the Managing Director of Human Change Management Institute for Africa and Europe for the English-speaking countries. I have been in change management for over 20 years. I'm also an ex-director, executive director of the Association of Change Management Practitioners for Africa. Areas of specialization have been obviously change management, strategy, business process reengineering, and project management. I've also delved a bit in project management. So I think that's basically enough about me. Otherwise, I'll end up rambling about myself. Let's get into the presentation now. All right. Take you back a little bit and give you some background in terms of where change management started. Okay, so we have the father of change management, Kurt Lewin. He explained to us the 3 steps of change. This was back in 1947. The first step, he said that, you unfreeze the change, then you go on to carry out the change, and you refreeze, all right? We know that this is a very simple way of looking at it, a very ordered way. But when you come to some of the projects that you deal with, you know that change is agile and liquid, and there are simultaneous changes happening all the time. So Kurt Lewin and its application, in this current environment that you're aware of, might not be the best. Okay. Let me explain to you a little bit further, okay? So change management has changed. I will delve a little bit more into John Kotter with his 8 stages of change. The first stage being establishing a sense of urgency, creating a guiding coalition, developing a vision and strategy. 4th stage, communicating the change vision, empowering the broad-based action, generating short-term wins, consolidating gains and producing more change, and anchoring new approaches in the culture. All right, more relevant, okay, seems a bit familiar, right? Okay, it didn't lose its essence. That's John Kotter for you. So just a little bit of history for you right there. Now, as you are project professionals, the majority of you, when you hear establish a sense of urgency, create a guiding coalition, this is basically what you think of. Okay, what activities should I have in place in the project plan, and you almost try to make it like a tick box exercise. All right, we will unravel that this is not the case. It can be simplified within the HCMBOK structure that we have for you and that we will present to you in the latter stages. Okay, so just a bit of history for you right there. I've delved into Kurt Lewin. I've spoken to you about the 3 stages of change that he inspired. I've also delved in John Kotter, the 8 stages of change management. And Darrell Corner, for you, this is the gentleman who coined the burning platform, all right? So before you make any changes, what is the burning platform? What are some of the pressing issues that need to be addressed? And this informs the change that needs to happen. That's Darrell Corner. So all these people were part of the first generation. They do still influence other generations of change management. But you find that they were very simplified, very structured in the way that they do things. And then we moved on to the new generation. They inspired the new generation frameworks. And these new generation frameworks are really like your professional services companies, the big 5 as they call them. They inspired this. They put in place, change management that was for specialists. You had big teams of change managers. There was a bit of academic inspiration. Some of them even had bodies that just had professors coming up with concepts around change management. And you also find that the language was quite hermetic, consulting language. And it was quite prescriptive in terms of what you need to do. All right. And we all know some of the frustrations that some of you feel, because you know that you cannot come with a pre-packaged solution to any change management approach. Okay. So I think everyone got to thinking, people, like, HUCMI, they started thinking around the third generation of change management. There's a little bit more, how can it be made simple? What can we do to make this applicable for everyone? So they also inspired the ACMP in coming up with a new model. And that's when we start off the particular edition, this edition that I have right here, okay, in 2012, which really laid down the foundation for HCMBOK as we have it today. In 2013 as well, the Project Management Institute formally recognized change management as a 10th knowledge area. Okay, they realized that there is, besides budget and costs, there is that additional element of the stakeholder that needs to be managed. So that came to the fore in 2013 when they actually realized that change management is a discipline on its own right there. Okay, and now what we find is that with the third generation of change management, it's really change management for all. So we don't have that genie that we had in the earlier slides that we presented to you. It's a practical approach and activity-oriented objective, strategy management of change, and what to do and how to do it. All right, so not as prescriptive. It doesn't have the special language that we had in the second generation, and is really something that anyone can actually learn and also get to apply. All right, which leads me to my next slide. So with change management 3.0, third generation, you are the protagonist. Okay, you are reaching organizational changes through human changes. All right, you are impacted by change. You can make the change happen within your particular area. You are responsible for change management, and that's what this slide means right here. Okay. The purpose of change management in projects, one of the biggest purposes is to engage. You've got different facets working on a project, different areas. You've got vendors even coming into the projects. And one of the challenges that is always posed within those areas is how do you engage? And change management slots into this very well, right? The other purpose of change management is manage antagonisms. So there are a lot of clashes that are going to be happening right from the beginning to the end. In the middle of the project, there will be clashes that will be happening, personality clashes, some egos coming to the fore as well, in terms of the project space that you're dealing with. The role of and purpose of change management is very important in terms of managing those particular antagonisms. Okay, so the classic definition of change management, okay, it is the discipline that supports people and organizations from changing from the current state to a future state. Okay, very simplistic in definition. This is the third generation definition. Okay, plan, apply, measure, and monitor human factor in change project, increasing the chances of achieving or exceeding expected results. This is the definition that we have in terms of the current third generation definition of change management. Moving to HCMBOK, our third edition that we have. It is a set of good practices, methodology and tools to address human factors in project management. We have 48 macro activities. and 213 activities. Okay, so this is the full structure. All right. However, it is not prescriptive. You need to keep use your organizational impact assessment. You need to use your pre-assessment to kind of see which of items of the activities, of the macro activities that you need to apply as you go on. Okay, so we've laid it down in some sequence, but by no means do not follow that sequence if it does not make sense. Right? You will be informed, like I said to you, by your pre-assessment work, by your surveys, your discussions, your feedback, your interactions, and this changes all the time as well. So by no means, it's not a sequence of events that needs to be followed, but it just shows you what typically would happen, and you need to use your initial input to see what needs to be applied. All right, so just delving a little bit more into the structure of HCMBOK, we have recurring activities, which I'm going to take you through. So these recurring activities are activities that happen right from initiation and planning, right up to production. Okay, you see production in red there. It is normally called the sustaining stage. Normally, projects you tend to ignore, leave at the closing stage, and then you forget about production because typically project will be closed off, timesheet signed off, you need to move on. But production is just as important, probably even more important, because that's when the changes start to take place. So production is where you set in place the sustaining aspects of change management, your change management program. All right, so the first recurring activity that I have up there is planning and managing communication. This happens right from the beginning, the middle, in acquisition, execution, implementation, closing, and production. All right, planning and managing communication does not stop. Okay, creating team spirit and making reinforcement dynamics. We often make the mistake of, probably meeting for a team building every 3 months and hoping that we solve team issues, by having something like that. This is something that needs to happen right from the beginning again, right up to the end, all right? Because your team dynamics are going to be playing a very important part in terms of your productivity, the morale that happens within the team, and how the team interacts with the rest of the organization as well. So it's very important that we pay attention to this, not just as a once-off, as we normally do with our team buildings, but on a continuous basis. We also have encouraged participatory process. So co-creation is a very important element in terms of change management. Once people feel that they have co-created something, there's a sense of ownership and therefore a sense of protecting what they have co-created. So this needs to happen right again. Give people a sense of involvement, and encourage that participatory process in terms of executing, planning, acquisition, execution, implementation, closing, and production. Managing conflict, motivation, stress, and behaviors. We know this is going to happen, by the way. Not everyone, we're all coming in with different characters. We're coming in with different backgrounds. So conflict is inevitable, it's going to happen. And conflict can impact the team's motivation to work. There's going to be stress, and it's going to impact on how the team behaves as well. So we need to take this again, right from the beginning, right up through to production. Remember, right through to production, not just closing. Encouraging creativity and innovation. We know that a team that works best is a team that is stimulated, a team that is challenged in terms of coming up with new concepts, new ideas, new ways of doing things, celebrating that as well. So this is one of the engine blocks as well, what provides momentum, to the project setup. So very important, again, this runs throughout, and it's a recurring activity. All right, the last one is manage stakeholder engagement. You have seen from the PMOs guide, very important. PMI as well also realizes this. Stakeholder engagement, very important. So what we do from the beginning, we get a mapping of the stakeholders. Initially, this can be subjective, and subjectivity, your subjective view in a group, obviously, can actually be a starting point. You play that, feedback that, you put in place ways of engaging stakeholders. You map them. Are they resistant? Are they influential in terms of impacting your project? What do you need from the stakeholders? And that continues, because in some cases, some stakeholders change along the way. And if you're not keeping your pulse on where stakeholders are, I'm sure you've all had a situation where you get into a meeting, a stakeholder that supported you is not there for you anymore, all right? The reason why that happens is that you have not continuously managed your stakeholder engagement, right? And in some cases, some people just want to be copied in on emails so that they have a sense of involvement. So that is very important, that it runs right from the beginning up to the end as well. Okay. All right, now we're going to delve a little bit more into change management activities. I will give you a few examples. We will not go into everything. Just a few examples of the activities that are project phase specific. All right, so the first one I'm going to start off with is around initiating and planning. We're going to deal with defining and preparing the project sponsor. This is just one of those examples. And, unlike before where we dealt with recurring, this one and these activities that I'm going to talk to you about are activities that happen at each particular stage of the project, right? So defining and preparing the sponsor of the project. What we do right there is, we start off by defining the sponsor of the project, ensure that the sponsor's commitment to availability for the project is very important. Prepare sponsor to act on the project, in the project. Just to take a pause there, the challenges that I've had, I think in the past, with regards to not following the first three steps that we've actually outlined, is that it's very frustrating and very dangerous for a project to have more than one sponsor within like a year, for example, because each sponsor has got different expectations. And I'm sure those of you that have had sponsors being changed down the line have actually experienced this. It's not a nice place to be, and you cannot retrofit each sponsor's expectations. And that's why we need, when we speak about a sponsor, you need to make sure that whoever is going to be that sponsor is available and will be there for the entire duration of the project. And is also not just there to sign off, give orders, but has a role to play. So that's why we say that prepare the sponsor to act in the project. Very important right there. Okay, discuss the objective of the project, expectations, people, and areas that will be involved according to the sponsor's view. Again, sponsor being involved right there. Identify preliminary impacts perceived by the sponsor. So we spoke about change impacts. You need to make sure that your understanding of the change impacts, tallies with that of the sponsor as well. So at this stage, good to check, identify what they think the impacts will be. Make sure that the sponsor is willing to face the challenges and be available to carry out the project. Very important. I think we've reiterated this enough times. Okay. And then again, another example of change activities that happened, that happened at the initiation and planning phase. Hold a working session to align and mobilize leaders. Plan a working session to align and mobilize leaders, and review it with the project manager and the sponsor. Okay, and then at this stage, this is when you introduce change management approach, its relevance for the success of the project, and then you align the vision for the future state of the organization or the project objectives, define the goals and quantitative and qualitative matrix. Just right there, quantitative matrix. This is very important because this also helps you to gauge your short-term and long-term wins that we spoke about earlier on. When you all have a qualitative and quantitative understanding, it also helps to check common understanding of what the project objectives are as well. So very important, that particular point right there. And then define the strategy to communicate the change and communicate it as soon as possible. As soon as you pick up some information, because remember there's anxiety building up with the audience that you're going to be dealing with, you need to, as soon as you have some form of information, you need to start churning out communication. And when you do also start communicating, let the audience know, the people impacted know that this is one of many communications that are going to be sent out, you know, and as you get more information, you know, it will be communicated to you as well, because there is a tendency to want to get everything, or even from the project team to want to communicate everything all at the same time. So just as a warning for you right there. Raise the leaders' awareness of their role as active agents or co-sponsors. Very important. Leadership alignment needs to happen right there. And then at this stage as well, this is when you also start, you know, just observing some behaviors, see your potential antagonists or sellers of the change, see who's who within your stakeholder matrix. Essentially, this is what this is talking about. So at initiation and planning, the main deliverable, this is just an example of the main deliverable. The main deliverable there would be your change management strategy plan. It will have the following elements, okay? Sponsorship, vision, purpose and objective, goals, matrix, elements of organizational structure, project team assignment and development plan. We spoke about antagonism factors. We also need to look at engagement factors. You've got your initial map as well. And important right in the middle right there, roles and responsibilities. You need to clarify this, roles, responsibilities. You know, build up a race matrix that everyone else understands. And then your ordinary communication plan, it says ordinary right there for a reason, because as you go on with the project, you will have ad hoc communication required. You will have specialized communication required, but you do need to have your ordinary communication plan just to guide that, you know, that process. Then you've got the project management structure with its governance model as well. You've got a kickoff plan, action plan, your quick wins that I spoke about, which if you have your quantitative and qualitative goals and metrics, it makes it easier to have quick wins. Budget, very important. We normally get caught out right here because somehow change management activities, you know, do not take priority in terms of budget, but you do find that when you need to have like celebratory events, when you probably need to motivate the team, give awards, we start running around and scrambling for money to pay for that. This needs to be sorted out right from the beginning. Make the project team aware, the whole project structure, that this will be the budget dedicated to enabling change management and supporting change management activities. And then you also have a map of your inherent, you know, map of risk inherent in the human factor. So your change management risk, essentially, that's what we're talking about right there. And then the change sustaining strategy. So right in production right there, what activities are you going to put in place to sustain the changes that you are proposing? So in terms of best practice, okay, this is what you need to do. I'm almost coming to an end of my presentation. You need to develop the strategic change management plan integrated with the project plan. Very important. Change management plan activities, change management mandate cannot be separated and be somewhere out there. It needs to be, if we are to apply HCMBOK and the third generation thinking around change management, it all needs to happen together, and to the point where it actually needs to be almost co-created between the change consultant, or if you're doing it yourself, the project manager, with the rest of the team and the organization as well. So this is very, very important, and this is best practice in terms of change management. All right, PT, I've almost come to an end of my presentation, okay? So just as a parting word from me, change management is no longer a discipline for super experts, okay? we've gotten rid of the mystery. We've unmasked the mystery with HCMBOK, all right? With the third generation of change management, we've unmasked that, okay? You can and must learn how to engage, okay, stakeholders, okay? That's me, you. And just to give you just a summary of HCMBOK, offering, we've got the level 1 HCMBOK 3G practitioner, and then we've got the HCMBOK 3G expert and the HCMBOK master professional. The HCMBOK 3G practitioner, when you do register, by the way, you register, when you do register for your training and certification, you register for both HCMBOK 3G and HCMBOK 3G expert professional. The HCMBOK 3G, it's really, a simplified way, really for like your BAs, your entry-level project managers, those really not at the forefront, or those people that really need to have a grasp of change management at a high level, or are not working on projects directly, right? And then you go on to the HCMBOK 3G expert model. Now, this is a bit more challenging. You need to understand all the different aspects of HCMBOK structure and how you apply it within your project environment. So this also requires, ideally, for people that have worked within the project space, your HR organizational experts, your change management professionals, and it's really for that particular level. So when you do, subscribe, for the course, you will subscribe for HCMBOK 3G Practitioner 1, and then you also subscribe as well for HCMBOK 3G Expert Professional. You will take an exam after we give you training for 12 hours. 12 hours, if it's, online, it's also 12 hours. We split the training each day about 2.5 hours. But if it's face-to-face, we do 1.5 days for HCMBOK 3G Practitioner, right? And you write an exam of about 90 minutes. And what we've also done is that if you fail, because we believe that when you reread again to study for the exam that you failed, it's also a learning process. So we allow you to write 3 times within 6 months for both HCMBOK 3G Practitioner and HCMBOK 3G Expert Professional as well. The 3G Expert Professional is also a 90-minute exam that you write online. It requires a bit more thinking, a bit more application of your mind in terms of the concepts that you would have learned. It's also for 12 hours. For online training, we'll split it up to 5 days so that we do 2.5 days. But if it's face-to-face, it's also 1.5 hours. And then the third one, this one is more or less like your master's. So you need to submit like a case study, demonstrate that you have applied concepts, 1,600 hours you've applied on a project with concepts of HCMBOK, each particular element, how you've used it. So this is more or less like a case study. So this one, when you go online, you don't subscribe for it. This one, you need to hand in like a case study, and this is dealt with a bit differently. So when you do subscribe, when you go to our website, you will subscribe for the first 2. The third one, if you want to become like a master professional, you will need to provide a case study for that. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and hope to hear from you very soon.